In this video, we'll go over one way to validate data using server actions in Nextjs. Here we have a full stack Nextjs15 project using Prisma as the ORM connected to Vercel. When attempting to add a client, if we don't get the required data, we're going to get a message back from the server. To help with this validation, we're going to be utilizing Zod. Zod is a JavaScript and TypeScript library that allows developers to define and validate data schemas. By the end of this video, you'll know how to validate data and provide a better end user experience. To kick us off, we have a Nextjs15 project connected to a PostgreSQL database with Prisma as the ORM. On screen, we have a new client page where we're going to be passing a form to create a new client. It'll be marked as use client as it will have client-side activity. What we want to accomplish is if the user doesn't update the form with all the required data, send a message that specifically states what's needed in order to pass validation from the server. So let's start by installing the Zod package and gain access to Z. We'll create a schema that defines the fields of the object being sent to the database. In this case, we want to store clients, which is going to be represented by the name, the amount charged, and status of the payment in the database. In this page, we're going to create a const name form schema and set it equal to z.object. This is a method from Zod that's going to allow us to not only set the fields of the client, but also the type of the field and the message that we could send back to the user. These fields need to match the fields that's used to organize the client schema. Reviewing the file quickly, we have a model named client that has an ID stored as a string that will automatically increment. We have a name, which will be stored as a string, status, which will be a string, but notice it has a default of unpaid. This will ensure that the status has a string of unpaid, and we're also going to restrict what can be entered from the fields by using a select dropdown. Finally, we have a total, which will represent the amount that's owed. This is going to be stored as a float. So heading back to our server action, we now have guidance on how we should store each related field. The object name will be stored as a string, and if we add a dot after the closing parentheses, we'll gain access to additional methods from Zod. We'll use the min method to set a minimum requirement for characters. The first argument is going to be the quantity. The second argument is going to be the error message associated with the field in the event an error is initiated. In this case, we're just going to say name is required. Let's also add a field named status, and the method we'll be providing to it will be enum. Enum is a data type used to define a set name of values that's going to represent a specific set of allowed options. In this case, it's going to be paid and unpaid. Finally, we have a total. It's going to be equal to z.preprocesses, which is a method in Zod that's going to allow us to transform or pre-process a value before applying further validation. In this case, we're going to ensure that the value total is converted to a number before we validate it. Then the asynchronous function named create client, it's going to take in form data. The form data is a object from form submission, and it's going to be validated using Zod schema that we just created. The name of that schema is form schema. If validation passes, it's going to process the data and create a new database record via Prisma. If the validation fails or error occurs during the database interaction, it's going to provide a meaningful error message back to the user. The key role from Zod is validation with form schema.parse. Safe parse validates the object against the schema and returns either success, which is an object containing parsed data, or failure, an object with validation errors. Now let's handle the validation errors. Validated fields.success returns a Boolean indicating whether validation passed or not. Validated fields.error contains detailed error information if the validation failed. The .flatten.field errors converts the error structure into a flattened object keyed by name fields. An example, if validation is successful, then we're going to use that data to help create a client. With the server action updated to validate our schema using Zod, let's update our front end now. First, we'll import the use action state hook from React, which is going to help manage the form state. We'll create an interface named field errors that's going to store the client schema fields as a string with the empty array. In the form, we're going to gain access to the use action state hook with two fields named state and form action. Get field error is a function that we created that's going to pull the errors from the server response and display them inline next to the corresponding input. This is going to ensure users see exactly what's needed to be fixed. Within the return statement, you'll notice that we have divs that's going to return the error message based upon the field that's associated with it. We have one for name, status, and total. Now, if we attempt to submit this form without the provided required fields, you'll notice that we're getting the error message back. And as we test it out with each particular field, you'll notice that we're getting the message for each field that we do not have the required information. And if all goes well and we provide all the validated data, you'll notice that we get a success message in green that I just included just so that we can let the user know that everything was submitted successfully. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's quick tutorial on how to integrate Zod into a Nextjs15 project using server actions. If you enjoyed the video, consider giving me a like and also consider subscribing. Any comments or suggestions, just leave them in the comment section below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Love you, man.